Hi everyone, welcome back into the studio. We're going to continue some landscape studies today. I promised some of you a little bit more of a cloud studies, showing you some different ways. That's what I like to do in all of my videos is I don't just paint one way, I paint 80 or 100 different ways, and I like you to see some of those different ways, and then you can choose which ways work best for your particular look or your particular studies that you want to do. So what I have here today is I'm going to paint this sky that you see up there, and I put it up onto the big monitor. I go out every morning and I go for a walk, and it's a 4-mile walk, and I take some pictures of some really beautiful skies, and I get to see all those beautiful colors to start my day with, and it just makes it really exciting to be an artist. But I love the skies. I love the morning skies, and I love the color of the skies, of the morning skies, and the belt of Venus that happens. I love that. And today I'm going to capture that. I'm going to do a painting mostly of the sky, and then I'm going to put a small landscape right down here. That's the plan, okay? So it could change. But what I have here is a board. This is basically a tempered masonite board. It's a very nice surface, very smooth surface. And I've given it a coat of medium white. It is 18 inches by 14 inches this way. So it'll fit a standard canvas. So it'll be pretty good for you guys. Now, I'm going to be painting that morning sky, and I want to have this warm morning glow to it. So you've seen me start out with some westerns and some others when I do evening skies, morning skies, and a lot of times I use Indian yellow. Indian yellow is a beautiful traditional glazing color that's used as undertone, sometimes overtones, overglazing. That's really, and I used this side. I use Indian yellow a lot on that Dutch Masters painting that I did back there. It's a glazing technique, and it's a beautiful glazing color. So you've seen me do that before. I'm gonna tone this down with yellow oxide. So out of here on my palette, this is the medium white that I base coated the board with. This is a value 7 premix color that we actually have in the line here. And what it is basically white and black and a touch of yellow oxide. So it's already very warmed by yellow oxide, but it's a value 7. So in some of this sky area, I'm going to be lightening it up, and I'll show you that. But I want to come in here, and I'm going to use just water first, and I want to put out some yellow oxide. Now, yellow oxide is another, it's very, very warm, natural earth calcinated iron oxide pigment. It's an earth pigment, and I'm just going to wash this over unevenly because I want to create some of this morning glow that happens. I don't want it to be too bright, and because what I'm going to be using here and I want some unevenness to it, because that's going to cause an unevenness to the colors and a more natural look to the landscape. And what I want to do is those beautiful clouds, I'm going to paint them very much opaque. So some of this undertoning on them is going to go away, but the shadows will be transparent, and that underglow will show up through the shadows. We'll get more into that. But for the colors that I have out here, this is my standard YouTube palette that I use with you guys. I use other colors in some of my online classes. This is my standard YouTube palette. And if you go to the video link right down below in the description, you'll see a full list of the colors that I use and links to all the products that I use, like a little Liquitex 5 painting knife and stuff, and the Amazon licks. And also links to our online gallery if you want to go over and see some finished paintings. Sometimes it's good to see those and get inspiration. All right. I also have some extender medium, and I should put out, this is the Derivan open medium, and I do like painting with that, and I just pour out a little bit of this. I just need a little, and I like this, like if I'm going to be doing some very casual trees and buildings, little farmhouse, and I like to use that sometimes in this, and it's also great in the clouds if you're going to make opaque clouds, okay? Now, I have videos specifically on clouds, and you can go look those up, and I'll show you a variety of techniques. That's the way I like to do it, okay? All right, so that's starting to dry up. That's what I want. Let's come in here and put in just some casual ground lines. And so I'll use maybe a little bit of burnt sienna. I like to sketch with burnt sienna. I'll use this transparently, and we'll come in and we'll put in a ground line. I like to use this, and so I want to keep this. You know, when I studied the Dutch, like I did that Masters and stuff back there, I used to do a lot of Dutch Masters landscapes. They always gave a lot of sky than they did to the ground, and that's because, you know, throughout the Netherlands and stuff, it was very, very small country, and it was when I first went over there. It was a very small country, and the sky just made their landscapes more powerful and made the country seem smaller by keeping the horizon line really kind of low. And so I'm going to keep it low here today. You know, I'm going to go up no more than like a quarter of the way here as I start to decide the sky. So it's going to be right up about here. So I'm going to make actually 3 planes. One is going to be the back plane, which I want to do the very back and maybe have a little water or something right here. And then I'm going to come forward just a little bit with a plane that I'll put the house on, a farmhouse on, and then even a little bit farther forward yet here that I'll maybe have a couple of forward trees. And so this is called linear perspective, linear planes. And so what I want to do is this one needs to really kind of come forward a little bit more because it's not, I want these linear lines, so maybe right in there, that'll be better. And so what I want these linear lines, and in landscape, if I put at least 3 planes, then you'll have a better depth. And, you know, just a real quick way to show this. So if I have 3 planes, let's say I'm going to put a tree out here, and I'm going to put a tree. Here I put it large, here I would put it medium size, and then here I would put it small. And you already, just by that, you start to have linear depth. Do you see that? And so that's what those lines help you with. So when you're going to set up a landscape or something like that, you start doing that pretty much right away, and it really does help. Let's get into this sky. I'm going to take my 1-inch brush here and maybe a little water. I want some of this to dry fast, so I use water. When I want it to dry slower, I use this. When I want it to dry slow and thick, I use that. So I'm going to take a little bit of this white and a tiny bit of the blue, the phthalo blue, and some white. Keep this value up pretty light. This is the light morning sky, and we'll come right back through here. And see, I'll let some of that yellow come through. It's the morning sky. Maybe drag it down just a bit. So I'm envisioning my last plane here, and then the light morning sky. Maybe a bit of extender. I like the extender because it makes the color slide really easy over the surface. So we'll come up a bit into the sky here, and we're going to have lots going on. Now, in good atmospheric perspective, and you can see it on the photo, and you can see over here onto this photo too, but as you go up into the sky actually gets darker. So because of the atmosphere, and those of you that study landscapes, well, you know, when you're down near the horizon line, that's when you have your farthest vision through the atmosphere. You can see about 30 miles. When you go up, you're only seeing about 5 miles. So it'll always appear darker up above, lighter down there, because the water vapor in the atmosphere lightens the color, right? Remember that? All right. So it's lighter here. It's going to go a little darker as it goes up. So I'll add just a touch. Always leave off to the side where you can see your other colors. And usually it gets just a touch cooler. I don't want to get that much cooler because I want to leave that warmth, but a tiny bit of the quinacridone. So I'll come up here and push this in. Now, sometimes I'll just grab some water and pull that across because I don't want to lose all of my yellows in there as well, that nice warmth. But I want this to go a little bit darker as it goes up. So it's going to go a little bit. Then we'll step off to the side here just a touch, and we'll go a little bit more, maybe just a touch, a little bit of extender. And so it's thin. I'm not putting this on very thick. And so I'll push a bit more of this. Use a modeling brush, what I call a modeling brush. Your brush moves in all kinds of directions. That helps you create the atmosphere. This could go a little bit thicker, a little bit darker. So I'll go a little bit thicker, tiny bit of the violet into that, a little bit darker. And on the value scale wise, we're going to be looking at the horizon line and then slowly go up maybe to a 6 or so here. You know, if we held that up to the photo, I know you can't quite see that. That's right about a 6 at the top. So it's a 6 right up here. Let's see where I am with this. That's about a 7, so I could go just a touch darker. Little bit of extender, just a little bit darker here. And this is all going to be worked again. And I like this. I like this modeling of the sky. Those of you that go for those morning walks like I do, you see that sky, those colors get just very modeled in there. So you see the sky goes up like this, and that's what we're trying to capture. I could, and I just might be just a little bit more opaque right in there with some of my colors. So I'll go back up to a light sky blue here and just put a little bit more of that, still allowing though some of that gray to come through, and I'll take some of it below the horizon line and work that up and through. So I have this now. All of this, see the yellow that comes up and through here? That's some of the modeling that I want to leave. All right. So what I'm going to do back here is let's get just a little bit of our medium white, a little burnt sienna, a little yellow. Leave this very light, maybe a touch of green. Modeled color, and my land is going to come right back here. Maybe a bit more yellow, burnt sienna, green, a little bit more color into it here, just a bit. We don't want to get too dark. We want to keep it up, fairly light, because that's the receding plane. So that's going to go right there. I'm going to blur the edge a little bit. That'll be a receding plane. Now see what happens is that as this plane comes forward, so if I'm looking at doing something in the planes, as this plane comes forward, this would be the next plane, the next color. You see it coming forward. And then down over here, where I'm going to do these other trees, would be the darkest plane. Let's get just a touch darker. So this is what we call so this, when we put the planes out, that's called linear perspective. When we start doing this with our colors, getting slowly, slowly darker, and the darkest coming forward, that's atmospheric perspective. And if I'm working with a dark plane back here, a light plane back here, and if I put too much dark back there, see what happens? Your eye jumps back there, but it destroys the depth. So as objects recede into the background, they become more like the sky. And, and it'd be just the opposite in, like an evening or something, or sunset, when you're looking with that dark, really, really, really dark and really intense colors would be in the back, dark colors would be forward. But this gives you an idea of this coming forward like that with colors, called atmospheric perspective. This coming back linearly like that is linear perspective. So the trees get smaller. That's linear perspective, okay? All right, so I have that right back there. And I want to put some trees back there, so I'm going to go to a small brush. And what do I have to do to that back there? I have to really lighten these trees and stuff up. And I don't want them too bright back here. I'm going to model them up. I'm going to even add some open medium, take a small flat like this, okay? And I'm going to add some ideas of these trees. Not very tall. This is this idea of trees, tree line back here. Okay, and sometimes in the very back like that, I'll take my bigger brush and just pull through. I like to do the verticals because that gives it the height. But you just pull through like that, and that's going to put some super soft trees. Could they have a little more contrast in there? Sure. Not everywhere, but let's change the colors. Touch and change. Change the colors. A little more green, a little more yellow. Hit that morning color of light through there. Just blur those off just a bit. And see that blurriness that I do just by pulling that brush once, it helps establish depth in the painting here as well. So we'll do a little bit of that. Some ideas. We can come back and work on these trees to make them the world's best trees later on if you want. Leave a few ideas of a few holes or sky holes or something like that. Just like that, just real quick, and nothing much to it. We can add a little bit of interest here to a ground line, but we got to be careful. That's a little dark, so I'll just pull right through a touch more light right through it. So I'm going to do what I call strong horizontal, strong verticals. And so to make this not look like a straight line, maybe I take a little bit of shadow back here and add a few little marks. And I'll move that shadow maybe a little forward over here. So it almost makes planes within the planes, if you know what I mean. So I get some of this standing, some variation here. Let's get a little bit of light and pull that through. So I get just a touch of light and interest in there. Maybe a little bit of the yellow right there. Okay, so now I have that little bit of blue that looks almost like the water back there, doesn't it? I may want to have a little yellow and that light, and we'll push. I wanted to have like a little line of water back here, which is going to reflect the sky. So I can't do absolutely perfect until I get the sky in. But as I come forward, so I'll be looking at my next plane. This is the color I'm looking at for my next plane. A little yellow, a little burnt sienna, a little bit of white into that. Let's start. So if I'm going to say, okay, here's going to be where my house is going to go. This is going to be this forward plane right here. And we'll go right around that water area there, leave some of that light. So we'll get a little bit darker, and that's going to bring this plane just a touch more forward. And a lot of times, like, you may get your darks off just a bit. I like to do this, scratch it over the surface. So I don't impart a heavy change, just a slow, gradual change. And that's what that scratching of the fusion brush. The fusion brush is a real soft brush, and so it scratches over the surface there on that ferrule, and you get a lot of very nice little interest right there with that. And then again, as I come further forward, as we come over here, especially over here towards these trees, we'll go burnt sienna, green, a little darker right over into this area. So the darkest will come forward right out here. We can even make a little path or something like that. So you can see, now as I put this dark on, that's going to make this seem just almost, or it's almost lost. And so we could maybe add some more color back there. So like even thin it out, a little bit of water, take some of this, maybe a little burnt sienna, maybe a little open medium will help you transparent up, and just kind of scratch over the surface there just a bit, and it adds a bit more interest and a little bit more darkness to it. So you can have a little darkness back here, but you want to definitely have its darkest colors up in the front, if that makes sense here. So we could have a little more green here. Let's just put a bit more, model that up just a bit. We'll put more taps in it for some trees. And I can see, now that I've started it, I can see more interest into some of these colors that I could develop back here. But you always start out super soft, because you can always add more really easy. So it's best to start out. And light is going to, morning sky is going to come in this way. So if you imagine a tree and you're going to paint a perfect tree, you would imagine shadows to the left here. So shadows, if you're going to visualize a tree, shadows would be to the left, and everything else would be to the right. So here's your very back plane there. We could maybe have, since the blue sky is up there, maybe have just a whisper more blue right in there, because water reflects the sky, right? So you can have a little bit of that sky reflecting down in here, right down like that. But anyway, that sets up the depth. Now let's set up, I want to pull the viewer in here. So I want to be careful with my dark plane into here. I want to lean in. And those of you that, we've said, always look at, Richard Smith and his leading in, his taking the viewer into the painting. He's master at that. And so I want to do some of that, which means I'm going to soften some of this back, and I want to bring the viewer in here just a little bit more. So I'm going to actually put on some colors that are going to be a little too dark right now, and I'll paint them out, okay? But I want to create the contrast. I want this little farmhouse. I want to put a little farmhouse or something right in here. And I know this is too dark. Okay, I want to have some trees and stuff, so I want to have medium-sized trees. So I want them to come up. Just an idea for me. them to come up right about like this. Some of that dark, vary this. Have some greens in here as well. I'm going to paint the majority of this out. This is just to help me see for right now, because I'm drawing this at the same time. So I want these two planes right here to override each other a bit so that you see the depth. Does that make sense? So I want to override these two planes right here. I want this dark right in here. Most of that's going to paint out because I'm going to put a house here. And I'm going to add a little open medium to this so I get a little transparency. But I want the viewer's eye to come right in here. So I want these, I want trees no higher than that. Might be a bit high, but not too bad. Okay, so I want this area right here. Leave a few sky holes here as I work up onto those trees. And a lot to do on there, but this is just the idea here. Some nice darks that are really going to pull the viewer's eye right into here. And I like to, pull around and move. I like the paper towel. I love the interest that a paper towel gives to a painting. So I like to use that. Let's get a little bit smaller, a little bit of edge here to some of this as those bushes and stuff are going to go forward. So you're basically going to see a little strip of land here kind of come forward right here, and then that atmospheric perspective of these colors is going to separate these two bits of land. So this one's going to be back behind. My plan is to put a house right in here, and then I know I have to darken and come up here to the very front, so I'm going to make it even darker one yet and come right up in here with my most forward trees, maybe a few of them taller ones, right into here. How they actually going to look, we don't know yet. But I'm looking at the color right now and doing a color setup so I can create 3 planes. Do you see that? Okay, and once you understand that, see, as artists, you understand the planes, you understand the concept of atmospheric perspective and linear perspective, you can adjust your colors to make anything. Like I could bring a back plane right here and make triangles come back like that, a heavy color and heavy color. You know, Bob Ross did that a lot and everything. You know, brought the whole forward plane forward. A lot of artists travel the plane like this, in that the forward plane sits to one side and they lead you on this journey going back. We're going to kind of do that. All right. So I have kind of an idea. Right up here in the front, I'm just going to take a little medium white and a little bit of white. I want to visualize right in here where I'm going to put that little farmhouse. Is going to come right in here. And this is just an idea for me right now. This is not the perfect farmhouse. A little medium white, and I'll go in and we'll paint this thing very specifically. Maybe a little shadow side to it, so a little darker. A little bit of shadow if you come back on this side, because this is going to be the receding side of it. So I could bring that front up a little bit lighter. Let's do that. This is just an idea. So my farmhouse is going to sit here, right like that, and then the side of the house here, and then we'll have a little roof line, maybe a nice grayish kind of roof line. Don't know yet exactly. You can have red roofs, all different kinds of roofs, but let's just do kind of a grayish roof line right now, right here, right up on it, and bring that back a bit. Just an idea. It's nothing perfect. This is just a color, you know. So my, you know, a lot of artists always say preserve your drawing, keep your drawing, and that is very, very true. But when I'm doing something like this, I let my drawing go off a little wonky. So that's just a little wonky. It's okay. I'm going to take a little bit of that dark and reinforce this edge right in here a bit. There, so I have that. And I could put maybe another little outbuilding out there too. And it could be a barn. You could put a red barn. Maybe you want to put a little red barn back there or something. I like red barns. I paint them. So maybe you want to put a little red outbuilding or barn right here as well. We'll maybe do that. And let's give it kind of a gray roof as well here. Just like that. A little different. We'll make it, instead of this hip roof like that one, maybe we'll give a little gable roof. We don't know quite yet exactly. And we'll darken that red down, cool it down a bit. It's in the shadow here onto this side. So it's just an idea. Just an idea. Maybe we're going to have those back there a little bit more going on. We can do that. Some of those tones I like to carry around. So some of that red will appear in some of the areas over here and so on and so forth. So maybe a little bit of the green right there. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I usually don't get, I just put color in, splashes of color that I know this is what I'm going to do. Because I start to see it, and you know, so I'm going to take a little bit of this red, this gray, because I need to elongate this line over here. And so you see, and this is how I start to put it forward. And I just want the ideas in here right now, because I'm going to, basically, I'm going to paint the sky first. And I'm going to blur that out. And just kind of, if I'm not quite sure about something, I'll blur it out a little bit, soften the line so that it, you can see it takes on a softer look in the painting, and I don't get distracted by it when I go to paint the other stuff. So let's go in and let's paint the sky. Now, when we painted the skies before, I showed you clouds and stuff. I showed you wet on wet techniques that are very important, and I showed you dry techniques before and other things with the westerns and stuff, how to paint skies with acrylics dry and how to paint them wet. And I've showed you thin to thick, painting clouds thick. I'm going to use a thin to thick on this. I'm going to take my bigger brush with a little bit of extender, and I'm going to put extender over here. Now, what does this do? This causes my colors, this is going to stay wet for a while, give me lots of time to work with it, which is not that important. I'm an acrylic painter. It's not that important. It doesn't bother me that much. But it does cause the colors to slide over the surface really well. So if I want to blur out an area, it's really easy to do it on a coat of extender. In other words, let's just say I take this warm yellow, and I like to use a few colors from my landscape into the sky. But let's just take this warm color. Let's say I'm going to put a warm kind of cloud here, you see, and I can blur through that really easy. It just slides. It's not blending into the blue because the blue's dry. It's just sliding over the surface, and that's the way I like it. And so sometimes when I want to paint that thin, I will do that. I will take some of this. Let's take some medium white and a little bit of white here, and let's just set up what we want our main clouds there. So we'll look up there at the big one, and we'll kind of build these out and around like this, and maybe some big area right up here. And we'll go to the darker colors later on right down here. But we'll pull more horizontal, because a few clouds in here and mist and stuff horizontal is going to help you with your linear perspective. So you want to get a little bit of that in there. And we'll get just a bit of that into that. But we want to build some of these big areas. Let's go a little bit more white. Now, as I go more white, this is very important. As I go more white, I'm going to go more thick. You can even, if you want to keep it wet, add a little bit of open medium to this. This will keep it wet through the entire painting. And I'm going to look for some of my powerful light edges here, just to the lights, and we'll push some of that through. Don't paint everywhere with white, because it will overtake your painting. You know, an actual painting doesn't need that much white, and this is pretty light. But what I'm going to do now, and I'll show you, and a lot of you feel really comfortable when you can blur. Now, don't blend, blur. Just take this and pull back through it and blur blur those textured edges off. See, just a couple of pulls through. Now you pick it up light. If you don't wipe it off your brush, you pick it up and move it someplace else. So wipe it off your brush and pull back through again. Pull back through. Let's get rid of that because I picked up too much of that. And pull back through and see the soft little edge that it makes, you know. And I can wipe back through both ways here and it blurs it out even more. And that just sets a good tone for it. But overall in the painting, that white is like too, you look at that white and then you look at the other colors that are up there, they're more yellow. So I want to add that. But I got that white in first and I like that. And I'm going to leave that. It is not a good tone for a morning sky, but what you'll find in just a minute, what we're going to do is use that white to reflect color. So it's going to be very important. So I want some of that white in there right now. So it's going to help me reflect color. And so I will look like into an area like right in here where I really want to build that cloud, some of that forward area there. And yeah, I'll just use my big 1-inch here. We'll take this, we'll add just a touch of yellow oxide to this so it warms that white up a bit. And we'll come right in here and we'll push a bit more of that light, maybe some of these real wispy little edges that I love in this painting. Little edges of wispy clouds and stuff that I love in this painting. We'll pinch wipe our brush and we'll pull through to blur that in. See how it just blurs it in real soft. And so with acrylics, you know, and you can do this, I'm going to want some of this to dry up so I can show you some other techniques with it. But with acrylics, if you put that extender over the surface and you don't have to work fast, but you work expeditiously with it. You don't play around with it. You can get some really nice, soft, blurry techniques. And look to doing it in layers as opposed to trying to keep it wet and working with it. Let this blur off and let this soften out, okay? Now, so I'm going to let some of this kind of tack up, not completely dry, but tack up. And I'm going to work on the dark violet side of the clouds because to a dark color, it's called simultaneous contrast. When I come in with a dark color, it's going to make this light color look lighter. So I want to get some of my darks in here. And I want to have a violet, but I want it toned. And so the yellow has to go into this violet to gray it out. And we'll lighten it with some medium white. We'll get some of these violety tones. And you'll see, let me just take this off for a second here, okay? We'll take it down here so you guys can see it. See these violety tones? You see that? That's this right in here. See the bottom of that cloud? That's it right there. So it's the violet, it's the blue, it's the violet, and then the yellow gives you this changing warmth that you get right in here of that. So that's what we want. We want to start right about in there. Not too much blue. We want it more to the violet and yellow here. A little bit more yellow. And we're going to come right up in here and we're going to see that dark. See how dark that is? But that's okay. Don't worry. We can fix that. But we're going to want to dance this around a little bit to get some of these softer darks. And right up over here, some of those softer morning darks that are on the bottom sides of the clouds. And they are there. They are really, really there. Now I'm going to blur that out. And I set down my brush. Where did I set that? Here. It's this one over here. And we're going to soften this out. I'm going to just put a little extender into this. The extender will, and I'm just going to wipe some of that other lighter color out. The extender in your brush will cause it to slide through these colors really easy. See that? See how it slides through those colors? And since I'm working right into the dark, I don't really necessarily need to wipe my brush, not like the whites, but I'm just going to soften some of that out right in through there and put some of that darker color. Now, I want to build up here a bit more. So here's my light part of my cloud. Here's my dark part of the cloud. I want to make a transition area here, a little light and some of this violet. this transition areas that you start to see here, and you'll start to see reds and some of these other colors in here as well. So I want to transition up into the cloud up towards those lights here. And so I want to put in some transitional in portrait painting, we call those transitional halftones. Now, one of the things that's so pretty is also pull some nice verticals, which I see, vertical building clouds right up in through here. So what we're going to do, and see, this is getting just a bit tacky, which is what I want. And I want to just swirl some of this around because we're going to build and build and build on this painting here. Let's get a little bit more dark violet and yellow right up over here. Let's pull some more darks, violets and yellows, more of the horizontal flat part of the cloud. Build that up a bit right in there that we see. See, you'll see that, and you know, on this particular thing, it gets really dark back up over here, doesn't it? Really, really dark. So we could get a real dark line right in here, even more so. And you can adjust this and take some of this out if you don't like it there towards the end. It's easy to take out. We'll put a few dark lines right out here. Just pull that through just a bit. And I want to keep it really casual. This is what I call brush casual right now. Now, let's also lighten some of this up to this real light violet. This is the atmosphere of it. And we'll touch some of it back here. We'll let some of that blue come out, but some of this other shadow part of the cloud come back out as well, right back through here. We'll let some of that just move around a bit. Some of that interest, okay? Now, what we don't have, so when you look at this and you look at this, okay, we don't have enough yellow. Do you see that? Not enough yellow in there. We've got that violet in there. Our blue is just a bit blue-green. We could have a little bit more violet into it, but we don't have that real warmth. Now, I'm not going to make my morning clouds here as warm as those yellows. I'm going to rinse my brush, put a little extender in it. I'm not going to, you don't want any water at this technique, at this part. No water, because we'll cut through the paint. Water's a solvent. So what I want to do is rinse my brush, pinch wipe the moisture all out of it, put a little extender in it, okay? This is going to keep you from cutting a hole. We're going to take some of our yellow oxide, maybe even a little bit of our Hansa here. We'll thin it out with a bit of extender. Make it thin, not thick. Thin paint, okay? And we're going to come right over this, right into this area, and push that yellow in, okay? Push some of that yellow, maybe a bit more. As you head towards the dark, your color can become a little bit more opaque, because that's the transition area. And maybe I want just a touch of orange, which is beautiful with the Diarylide and the red. Maybe a touch of burnt sienna, which is a little more toned for the morning sky. So that's a beautiful color right in there. You start to look at that color right in there, see? So, and we'll thin it out a bit right into here. Add some of that color. You're going to start looking through the sky and looking for these transitional tones through the sky. What is it that you see through the sky? And sometimes it's nice to go to a smaller brush and just start working areas of those tones through the paint. Use some different brush calligraphy, different movements of your brush to work that through. It all depends on how much time, how much you want to do it. I like to do it with the large brush. I've shown you on others where I do it with a knife like this. And I just push it through with the knife. And I let the knife slide the values together, see? And I like the way that looks as well. It's a very natural look. And then you can take your big brush and just blur through. But you get all these highs and lows of the colors, which, you know, is what you see happening in all of these areas too, see? Now, let's work thicker. Now as we come up towards the lights, we're going to go thicker and warmer. I'm not going to go to pure white. I'm going to go medium white and white, which will take it up maybe to an 8 or a 9 in value. here. And I'm going to tap that in and then move that down. Now see how it paints into these other colors really easy, because the white is thicker than everything else I put underneath here. So the white can draw the cloud really easy. And sometimes I'll use this with my knife, and I'll just push this out like this and push those colors out and slide this around. I love the sliding of the knife here when I work these colors like this. And you can blur that out, okay? Blur that out, blur this out. But you see those colors that are going in there. Now, into the actual finished one there, there's more light in it and more yellow in it, which I'll do. But I'm going to take a little bit of this light with my knife. I'll slide it around here. See, I love to push hard and slide. That gives the light hitting to the tops of the clouds and little light edges. Like you'll see this little light sparks come in and hit other parts of the other clouds here as the morning light hits it. And I just love that look. A little bit of yellow with this. My favorite way to paint clouds is with the knife. You've seen me do that on so many paintings, because especially as I start to get paint on and I start to smear it around, the paint gets thick and everything smears so wonderful. I like that feeling with the knife, and I have a lot of control with it with the knife when I do it that way. Let's put just a little bit of light with that and pull down, and we'll create that little bit of light area. And you can push, you know, you want to create these little, what I call sparks of light through the sky as it's hitting different parts of clouds and stuff. And that's what makes it really pretty. Let's put like right up in here, you see a bit of nice dark, and then the light pick up on both sides. So we'll come over here to our dark, a little yellow, a little burnt sienna, into some of that blue, maybe a touch of violet into it here. Beautiful colors. A little more violet right there. Okay, beautiful colors. Push that right in there. That shadow. Seeing that, I love that. That knife is so powerful. Do you see that? Now, I can wipe my knife, pick it up so it's clean, set it down flat, and push really hard. And that blends it. It'll push the layers of colors in together. And I'm doing it very slow and very carefully here, looking at what's happening with that knife, and it blends those colors. Now we want to go to a lighter and a yellow, a little more yellow oxide, a little lighter yellow out onto this edge. Then you'll see it'll soften that edge a bit right in there like that. Push that morning color across there into that one. Okay, now let's get that lighter, a little lighter in yellow, right on the forward part of this cloud, sitting right up in front of that one. There, okay. I'll push that in, push those together a bit, soften it a bit. I look for a medium tone, and then I'll come back and put in a lighter tone. So a little bit of white with this now. Lighter tone right up here like that. Push that through there, okay, and push that around a little bit. How much you do is how soft you want that cloud, or do you want to have that harsh edge? Or you can take it and pull down and soften it out a bit, just blur that out a bit. That's all up to you. That's all yours. I can push right in here and push small and draw in a nice little light point of the cloud right there as well. See, and maybe dribble some of that right here so I have a bit of a lightness coming through right along like that in that area. There's so much you can do. We can take some of this light yellow, burnt sienna, a little blue, and reset some of the darks that we had right in here coming up on this side of the cloud here. Maybe I need more yellow into my cloud, so I'll go up here to just grab some straight yellow and work that in. And as you let this dry up just a bit, it'll get easier to paint. Not as easy to blend, but is easier to paint. So it's kind of like you're making a judgment call on how much you let some of this tighten up. And what I mean by tighten, it's not dry, it's just sticky. And I love to paint the sky when it's a little sticky. That's when I enjoy it the most. But right along that edge, I'm going to put some gray into it and just push those together to create that softer underside cloud right there. Leave some of the dark, put some of that other edges there of the cloud. Okay. In the original, it's got some of those beautiful violets and yellow tones climbing up into the cloud here. So it climbs up in here. And then I'll take a little yellow maybe right on the edges of that. So see, now I got that whole thing. Now I can take my big brush and blur that, or wipe my knife flat and just push that around. Try not to blend it too much. Leave some of those color variations in there. But those colors just add so much. Now we'll take a bit of light, maybe build that front of this cloud up a bit more right there. Okay, maybe a bit more light. Let's get up towards some of this real light that is just hitting every once in a while. See, I'm not anywhere near pure white. Let me just take a little dose of more of a pure white here and show you what that looks like. See, I'm not there. I'm not pure white because this painting is really kind of a warm yellow. So I want to keep that warmth right in there as I build this. And let's just take all of this and just smear this around right up there into this forward cloud right there. Let some of the light and other colors, let's just take some of these colors and smear that around, because we don't need anything up here but color. That's all we need is color. And we can soften that out, blur that out a bit. Okay, we can blur some of those edges out before we build our light part of our cloud. Okay, and maybe you want to blur some of this. If you rinse, like I'm with my big blurring brush here is a little stiff, so I'm going to rinse it out, grab a fresh paper towel here, and wipe this off. It's very important when you blur like this, because we don't need the solvent. The solvent will cut a hole in the paint, and water's the solvent. What I need to is just to slide on it, so I'm just going to add a little extender to my brush. Okay, work that in. Tap off the excess moisture and then just lightly pull through. See how that just blurs everything ever so slightly, see? And then I can come back and work on it a little bit more if I want, just so that blurs that off just a bit, see? And then I can work on it a little bit more how I want to do that. So I want to put some more light hits here, but a bit more yellow with that. Maybe even a nice Diarylide, a little brighter yellow, because those clouds up there are getting kind of bright. That light yellow hit. So a little Diarylide with that here. And if I want, and see, I can drag right over that and give kind of like a wispy movement to it. So as this starts to tack just a bit, you can take some of this, see, and just drag over that just a touch, maybe not quite that much. I'll wipe my brush and lift some of that off. Wipe my knife, I mean. Lift some of that off, but that's where you get this draggy motion and the colors sitting in there in layers, see? So I will add some of this, and let's get a little more light right up here into the front, and right up here like that, right in there. There, that's kind of nice. That's two little points out there. It's not really needed too much. So now So I've got some of that going in there, and now I want to blur some of this in. So I wipe my knife and I'll blur some of this in, lifting it up and in. Lifting it, you know, if you lift from the shadow up, it takes off and blurs that out like that. See? Maybe blur this just a bit more there. But you get all of that movement in there, and you're in control of that. That's the nice thing. You're in control of that movement. Let's get a little violet right over here. Just a soft little violet. And push some of that right in here. That cooler little violet right in there that I see into the photo a bit. Right in there. Cooler violet colors. Right in there. And how rough you actually leave this cloud, that's all up to you. That's you know, you can move. I mean, there's tons. You can go back. Let's go back to our small little brush and start adding some little hits of the light. So we'll take a bright Diarylide, maybe a bit of Hansa here. So it's a real light yellow. And this is where we'll push some of the little light hits that we want to touch around. The light's hitting some of the tops of the clouds here. There's a little bit on that one over there that's right in here. So you see a bit of that light over there, a little light touch there, maybe a little hit there, a few spots of it. I want to also come down a little light but grayed right down here, a little more forward right in here. That could be a touch of value, just a little value lighter, just to hit that. So right in here. Boom, right in there. And you know, use your finger, you could use your knife. And that's the beautiful thing, guys. Don't be afraid to use all kinds of stuff. So you see me on these clouds, use my paper towel, I've used the knife, I've used the brush, used my hand, creating all kinds of different marks. And that's the most important part. Create different marks. Let's just create that soft little back sky there, right? Maybe this bright little orange. Let's get just a touch of this lighter orange. Yellow, orange, the red, make this orange color, and even more so Diarylide here. Right in here, let's get that nice morning sky light now coming through here. That is just so pretty. So we'll start this up. This will shock the heck out of some of you as we start to light this up. But see, this sits really nice next to on all of those mid to lighter tones that we just put in. So this works really well. We'll climb some of this up into those lights just a bit, break that up. Let's drop some of this right along this bottom edge, right in between. It mainly is going to sit right in between the light and the shadow as a transitional tone. Okay. Mostly Diarylide, a little bit of orange, you know, through here. Grab some of this, work this into the sky. Use a different calligraphy, maybe some vertical strokes here, because it's hitting the sky a little different. See, those vertical strokes add a lot to the sky. You know, they add a lifting motion here. Let's put another little lifting motion right up there, and maybe some really nice little touches of light right up here. Build this little bit coming up right there. Okay. Kind of pretty. Painting the skies like this, you know, like I say, is you can have just an entire beautiful painting of sky once you understand. And so you see your warm colors going through and transitioning down into your cools and into your violets. But even down here onto the violet side, in some of these violets back here, they can have hits of that warmth hitting because that's what's happening in the morning sky. You can have those hits of these mornings, and maybe a touch of a little tiny touch of the lights here as those are hitting some of these back areas back here, and it plays against the lighter blues and stuff that you have back over there as well. You know, so, and in the photo you see a lot more difference. You'll see even more. We could, as we, you know, you could dance some of these little guys around here, you know, but I could cool off, which I should, and we'll do that. So even when you're painting like this, before I do that, let me add one more little bit of light yellow that I see right in through this area. Build this cloud up just a bit more, and it should have a touch more shadow, but I'm not sure I want to do that. I think I might want to not leave that quite so much here, and let's just blur that slightly. Boom, right there. You can see all this lovely blur that it does. Let's put a bit more right here. A bit more here. Hold your breath, and then blur. So it's really nice to build up. But as you see here, with what, you know, how I'm doing this is I can build layer, 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 and everything still blurs because now my paints are very, very thick on there, and they're creating basically a large area of really wet acrylic that won't be dry for at least 24 hours now, because I have open medium in there, and I have heavy duty color on here, so I can play with this for quite a long time. Not that I want to, but you could, okay? And let's just take a little bit of extender here with this. Just tap through that. Let's make a slightly different shadow here. Just a softer through here. Different color. Break up some of that. Just drag some of that through. That's kind of pretty. Let's put a, you know, I'm not quite as heavy over here on the shadow side as the example is, but I kind of like what's happening over here. So I'm thinking I'm not going to touch it too much. I kind of like that happening over there. And I also watch it. I have a big monitor right here where I can see it up. And I usually set up, and this is very important, guys, because I haven't mentioned this to you in the last few videos that we paint. It's very important that you get up and get back and take a look at it. I paint everything here in the gallery for a view of about 8 feet. So, you know, if you get back 8 feet and you don't see all this movement, it's time to get in there a little more alla prima. And it may look terrible here doing it up close, but boy, when you get back, like you may come in here and just bang on some heavier textures and colors right there. Just lift it up, pick it up, and just, you know, bang that on right there and leave it, because at 8 feet the thing looks magnificent. But it's not quite so when you're up so close to it. So, you know, get up, get back, and look at it, or have, like I do, a little monitor here, and I can see that. And that doesn't look too bad here. We'll just put a bit of that yellow right there, building here. That looks kind of nice. And see, I'll leave that yellow mark in there. So we might soften that out, but I'm going to leave it. I'll leave some of this, a few verticals here, which is the lifting part of the cloud. There. Right up there like that. And maybe just a touch more opaque light. And then we'll go work on our farmhouse here. Yeah. There we go. Just a touch more where that's hitting it. Maybe, and you can look for the little sparks. Okay, the little sparks of light up onto the edges and stuff. So that's not too bad. And I can come back like what I wanted to do. Maybe some violet. Some light little violet here. Grab some white. We'll make a light little violet. Very light here. And I was almost completely out of white. And I said to myself I was going to get a new tube, and I didn't. So let's see if we can get just a little bit more out of here, out of this. There we go. That'll be enough to complete the painting. And say bye-bye to that tube here. But we'll touch a little bit more of this violet, get it a little bit lighter here. Blue, violet, blue, and blue, violet. And you can come back. Let's see, that's going to be just a touch blue, or a touch of violet. And you can come back and work this up into your sky, which is like I like to do. I go back and forth with this, streak this through some of the sky, see? And that just does amazing things there for your sky, streaking it back and forth. So we'll go blue to blue violet, streak some of this through, streak some of this through the plants there, the trees, okay, as it goes up and through a little bit, pokes up here and there into the painting there. So you can streak some of those skies, you know, and you'll get the feeling of the sky playing up against the clouds here. Now, in the photo, some of these clouds that are way back here go more purpley dark. So you can add little marks of that purple dark back up through here again. But we want to leave those light little edges with a little bit of that. But as you get back up here, let's get a little bit more violet in the blue right up here. A little bit more violet. So I'll streak this right through the violet. You know, get that. And that gets us up closer towards that violet that we need up there in that top of this photo. Now I can take my big brush, work these right together. And again, remember, we streak. We model, we streak. And so I'm putting it on thin here. I'm not painting out what I've done before. I'm just adding these other colors and layers. And so you can still see my original yellow through there as well, see? And that just, it just adds, let's go a little bit more blue. And working into the layers like this and thin, you know, thin color working through here. Some of these just adds to the painting. And so you adjust the blue, you adjust the clouds, and you get this beautiful look to your painting here. And I can do more. I could put, you know, I can definitely work these clouds again, work them a little bit more. But I think they've done their job. You know, I mean, I've spent an hour, not quite an hour on them, and that's pretty good. They've done their job. And, you know, sometimes I'll take this light like this and I'll break up into some of this cloud here so you'll see the sky. So it breaks up some of the blue and will break up some of the cloud, adding more sky into the painting there. And let's lighten that up just a touch more. So you can paint right over the clouds with the sky. And, you know, because it's just all done layers. And the viewer won't pick it up. That or you can come back in after that goes there and put in a nice, let's gray. So if you make your violet, gray it down with a little bit of burnt sienna. It works great because that blue and burnt sienna are almost complement. So they gray down really nice. So you can touch some shadow right in there. And that's it. See, that just gives you a beautiful, it's just a beautiful look to some of this marks and stuff of the sky here. There we go. Now I have all different other kinds of skies and videos and evening, you know, videos I did over the desert and stuff like that. All kinds of ways to paint sky, both dry, acrylic, and wet, kind of like this, and wet and layers a little bit. So there's all kinds of ways. I think what I'll do, one last thing here, and then we'll go down and we'll work on that house, is take a little bit of light and just drop it in like there's another layer hit of a cloud right in there, just to break some of that up. Yeah, that looks a little better. Some of these other wispy colors. Here, you could play with that all day, and I don't want to, but gives you some nice ideas. Hopefully this will give you some ideas. Some of you will want to paint into the sky a bit, because it is kind of fun to paint something like that. All right, let's get into some smaller brushes. We'll use our painting knife. Let me get into a smaller brush here. Let's go in with some of the colors we used right on our composition. Okay, right, the colors that we used on our composition into those skies, and I'll drop them here right into this roof line. And what's going to make this whole building and stuff here really nice is we're going to paint it over and over and over again. So the nice grays here, and we'll put a shadow side into it. And see, what I'm going to do is work the colors back and forth several times here. So I'll blur them, and not blend them, blur them, because I want a lot of this, I want a lot of modeling, which is the colors overriding each other without blending. We'll take a bit of our yellow, burnt sienna, so the warm side, yellow, burnt sienna, a touch of blue just to gray it up. Burnt sienna and blue is one of my favorite grays to paint with. So it gives you just really, really nice grays. And I'll drag some of this over, but I'm not going to, I'm not going to paint out everything here. Just drag some of that. When I start to build like this, what I'm doing, what I'm visualizing, is a lot of color that's going to come onto the roof here and break up. And so I paint it back and forth and back and forth. Let's take some of this color over onto this barn. Maybe that front edge there. Okay. So that's going to sit back there. We'll put in some soft shadowing on that barn. Green, a little blue, a little burnt sienna. Here, we'll lift up that shadow there. We've got to be careful that we don't get, we don't want too definite of lines. But I start to think of shadows. Under the eaves and stuff, pull some lines, pull some horizontals and some verticals. Let's do the same thing over here onto this one here. Pull down a bit. Okay, and we'll add windows and fun things like that, but maybe not yet. Let's just pull a simple little line right across here. And this is where I like to really use the fusion, drop it on its chisel edge and pull across, because I get a fractured edge there. Really nice fractured edge. And that's the way I like to paint these things. Let's get a little more light right into the very front here. Boom, pull that in. Pull some horizontals. But see, I want to leave this. See this modeling that happens? When I pull like that, I want to leave that modeling. Now, for the morning sky, that's a little too white, Dave. So let's get some yellow in there and warm that back up. Okay, for that morning sky, the light of the morning sky. Okay, and you can see how it starts to build it. Let's get some shadow tones down that side a bit. Right through there. See, it breaks up all of those tones. That's what we're looking for. Maybe just a touch of some extender. If the paint doesn't move on you because it's getting a little dry, add a tiny bit of extender. So I want to create this light shadow line here. Light and shadow edge of the building here. Okay. It doesn't need to be absolutely perfect. Maybe a little warmer light, yellow and a little bit of white. A little warmer, a little lighter right out here, right on that front edge. Build that up a bit. Some smaller, maybe a little medium white and white. Smaller little touches to it. so you can see what I'm doing, see, as I'm modeling through, I'm creating this modeled side of the building here. It has a lot of color in it. And then I, you know, but it's not perfect. And I want to break the edge here. So see, I put on a little bit of that shadow there and just pull it through. So it's not a perfect, you definitely see it, but it's not a perfect line, see? I want to keep that line a little softer here. Let's get maybe a touch of this red into this, and we'll put it right over here onto the barn on that side. Okay, and a little bit of yellow with that because that's the morning light, right? So a little bit of yellow hits that. That's your morning light that's hitting that side of the barn there, right? And some shadow pulling through a bit. And see, it just breaks up the colors. That's all I'm looking for, is breaking up the solidness of the colors and adding some of those light and shadow. So maybe a touch more orange, warmth right up over here of the morning light. Here. There we go. Maybe I like that medium white. If you're going to really lean on a light color, lean on that medium white because it's a warm white. And it's not as cold. See, the white, when I put it up there on the clouds, looked almost cold because of the underpainting and stuff that I've done. That light looked almost cold. So, something to keep in mind there. And let's get some more gray. Blue, burnt sienna here. Nice warm gray. So a little medium white here. Let's just add some of that to this purpley color. There we go. See, that's kind of good. Gets that other gray. See, and that's what really makes the, you know, if you're painting like, Richard Smith or any of the Impressionists, you know, they go back and forth with these colors, small adjustments to it. And each time you do that, it adds. You can see here on mine, each time I do that, it adds a little bit more to the painting. And that's the thing. But I'm constantly, guys, constantly changing the tone. That's the other thing. Constantly change the tone. Don't get stuck too long in one tone. You don't want to do that. Constantly change the tone. Let's get this light right out here. Just the edge of that. Let's bring that right in here. Just a bit of it. Don't need to go down the whole thing. Just a bit of it to loosen it back up. Now, let's add a little more architecture to this. Maybe a bit of our grays. And we'll put maybe a front porch right up on here. The idea of a front porch. Maybe that little bit of light, nice warmth lights, sit up right on the edge there of the front porch. And so we've got a bit of the gray. See, we all know that, a lot of these places have front porches, so we just got to emulate it. We don't have to paint it perfectly. Just emulate it here. Let's put in maybe the idea of a front door and a bit, and see, I'll put it on too big and then I'll paint it back down with a little bit of the lights and some of the other colors, paint it into position here. And let's add just a touch of light, a little break there. Maybe a couple of windows up here. The flat brush works so well, just little ideas of them there. And maybe a little window on either side there. Let's go just a touch darker, maybe a little more burnt sienna blue here. Make sure they're on about the same floor here, so couple of ideas of windows here on this side. There. Maybe a little line. You know, just a little, you know, clean up your architecture, your drawing just a little bit with some of those lights and darks. Let's pull up a little bit of this gray right up along the front of this roof line. Maybe it's got a bit of that angle there. Maybe you hit a bit more yellow and white as a nice morning light hits it right up here. You can see that hitting it. Maybe some of that morning light hits right in here, down the side, along the roof line, the front of the porch there. You know, and if you want to clean up something, let's say I want to clean up that roof line at the top. Think about doing it negatively. What I mean by that is, let's do it with our tree color here. So, and I'll take the trees a little bit higher here, but let's do it with the tree color here. So this angle would actually sit back just a bit here and then angle across the front of that there and pull that up, smoosh that up a bit. So you see that little bit of tree color there. And yeah, and if you want to make fine little details, you can do it with your knife. Your knife does the fine little edges really nice. Just pull it back and forth a bit. Don't worry about being absolutely perfect, but you know, a bit of that. All kinds of ways here. Okay, so maybe I'll bring this part of the house here forward here. Let's get a little bit more of that burnt sienna and green. You could cool it with a little bit of blue. Burnt sienna, though, if it gets too blue, because that's the complement, basically. And pull that in. Clean up that edge a bit. And, you know, I blur into it because I don't like those edges to be too perfect or precise. So I blur those in just a bit. Blur that house right back there into that darkness. Maybe some of that goes right up here into the front. You know, we might take a bit of that, just drag right along the edge here and create that movement there of the grasses and stuff in front of it, you know. Dark, burnt sienna blue. Dark little touches here if you want to add some architecture to your barn. Maybe you want a little bit of that into your barn. And little lines, just, you know, little details, little lines are great. You know, maybe slightly of a reddish color here. But little movements, verticals, horizontals here that you know, give it just a touch more interest. That's what we're looking for. Touch more interest. And you actually paint them quite a few times. Let's get a little of that warmth yellow back in there. Okay, maybe just a touch of that red. Maybe that sun's hitting just an area there and it just gives it a little dose of the red. But see, I don't drag it everywhere. I don't need to. You don't need that much there to say, hey, that's a red barn. Maybe a little cooler red, just a touch of it here onto the side. Maybe you got just a bit here. Okay. And so I do these kinds of stuff, little colors, little touches. I call them the little sparks of color. And I like them to go around the painting here. Let's take a little green and burnt sienna here. And drag some of that out here like this, out further here. Okay, so yeah, just little bits here. And you'll want to start, you don't want stuff too wonky, and I'm a little bit wonky here. In other words, you want it to have some good, good lines, good drawing lines. And so we do want to preserve some of that. So I'll come back, and you can use a smaller brush. It's even a little better. But, get some good, preserve some good drawing lines there for it as you start to build the house and stuff. Preserve some of that stuff. And some of those little lines, just using your knife here, like maybe putting on a little light touch right there, just helps. See how it just kind of straightens out a little bit. Maybe a bit of a light right here on the front edge of that eave or that hip roof there. The front edge here. You don't want to make it too linear, but it helps a little. Here, we'll just drag some of that across. There. Get rid of that. Yeah, and it just is good here. Just an idea of it sitting back in there. And yeah, and and what I do with mine is I tend to go back through, and I do this kind of stuff. Like, see, I just put the shadow back on, and then I'll come back and put the light on in a slightly different way. And so what it does is it just each time you do that, it just makes the house, makes everything in your painting a little more casual. And that's what I like. I don't like just one. I like the values to kind of override each other. And I start to get just a little bit more and a little bit more casual nature to the painting, which is what I like. And, maybe I'll touch in and slightly different color than before and work those windows and stuff here again. And I got them over here, just little bits. Here, and that center one's a bit big, so I just take a little bit of light and I'll tap right in next to it, and it just does so much. So don't be afraid to work these things a couple times. Take some of this light like this, pull down like you've got little ideas of the porch posts and stuff like that, Keep everything a bit casual, impressionistic. And I like this kind of stuff, where I just come in and start to add these little whispering lines, like there's the roof line there. And I like that broken line of that. So it starts to bring the architecture in more and more and more, and that's what I like. And then, before you finish, and I'm not finished with this, I would do this again, and maybe even again. But before I start to finish it, I like to go around and add some of the trees and all that kind of stuff, because as you work one area and then work the next, it's going to change the whole look of the painting, the house and stuff here. So let's put a little more touch of warmth right in there of this morning light coming down, maybe a little bit of that warmth of that morning light hitting here, right in there. And just a brush with a little water can move that around slightly and give you a nice look there. Okay, so yeah, all kinds of fun stuff. There's be a bit of this shadow like I showed you in the other barn painting that's right up underneath that edge. And I'll break that edge just a bit because I don't like the lines to be absolutely perfect on what I paint. Don't like that. So I like to vary them. A little warmth there. Come back with a little lighter gray. Hit that again. A little bit of blue and violet into that gray. Back and forth, guys. So There, back and forth, see? And that sets it in. Now, let's come back before we run out of time here. Because I will go back in and paint that again, but you get a good idea of that, okay? Let's go back with some green, maybe some burnt sienna, mottled color, not too dark. And let's set up some just soft trees. Use just the angle corner of this this flat, or you could use a little filbert, and it just does a nice job there. See, it just makes some of these trees, and you can pull through just to soften and blur out those edges, or you can grab your big brush and blur through those edges. That works. And let's grab a bit of these right up here. Vary the lengths, the heights, the power of them. Here. There we go. Just like that. Put that in. Let's put a couple marks of a shadow. Burnt sienna, blue, and green. Just a little hit of some of the shadow plane right back there. That helps set some of this back behind. Okay. We want some of those shadows. We really want some of those shadows right up here, as we're going to do that forward length of that forward bit of trees right there, right? We'll do that. Let's do the knife here for a minute. Let's get a little green, a little yellow, a little bit of white, medium white right in here, even a little bit of that red I have there. And let's just push some of that right in here horizontally with that knife. A little bit of that red got in there, burnt sienna red. And that's okay. We'll let that sit in there. And we'll get some more green into that. Gray that up a bit. Let's move that over there. Get some more green. Yellow oxide. Whites. Let's just drag some of that through. Let some of that. Break those lines. Drag that around, break the lines, add a few verticals, a few horizontals. I like to pull down with that paper towel in the vertical because it just breaks up some of that. Okay. And push some of this in here. Drag a bit of that out. Let's take a bit of that medium white in yellows here, right out here. See, one reason that medium white works out here, it's going to be a lot of our forward colors as well in the painting. A lot of our forward colors here. So let's just grab some of that, pull that through. Boom. Here they all come. There. It gets a good horizontal plane. Let's get a little burnt sienna and the green. Makes a nice gray, some medium white. And let's get a little bit more of our yellow. Kind of blew through that yellow a bit. So grab a little bit more of our yellow. That's pretty colors right in there. Push some of that right up in there. Boom. And we want to, you could use a small brush or you can continue with that knife, but we want to push this plane right back in here. That's going to push that back part of those trees further back, maybe behind the house there. And a few little verticals there. So we'll push these other trees with that plane here right back behind the house. There. Okay, and some of those grasses, cooler areas over there. Maybe a little bit of yellows. There. Right over there. Thinking of your color, thinking of your light, and thinking of your color going out. You could increase some of that nice yellow, maybe a yellow oxide, maybe a bit of Hansa, and drag some of that through here. Pick up that warmth from the clouds coming through up here. Right up through here like that. Okay, and let's get a bit more. Let's add some open medium to this. This will help keep my paint thick, which is what I like in the foreground. And it will give me some working time here to build some of these more forward trees here. Right up here with those colors. A few little sky holes and stuff. And a little more dark. Some of these darks. Right up through here like that. Shadows. Right up there. So you see those shadows really help. And see, if I took any of that dark and put it back there, I would destroy the depth of my painting right now. So I don't want to do that. Maybe a touch of this through the trees here. And I could have, definitely as I put this on, I could have a little bit warmer, lighter touches on that house. Maybe even just some medium white and white. Not huge, just little touches of it here. And see, that just warms that up a bit. Now, is it too much? It's close. I'll take a look. But see, little taps of it, and I'll redo that shadow underneath there. So see, sometimes I'll go back as I come into this, I'll go back and forth, and see, that pops that house up again. Do I want that much? Well, I don't know. How much do you want? That's what it comes down to. It now starts to become your painting and how much contrast and stuff you want on your painting. So let's put a little bit of the gray back into that. A little bit of the gray back into that. There. Into that little house back there. That's kind of nice. And we'll start to take some of these colors and really start to model, you know, some of this area up. This is going to be all kinds of little bushes and trees and little stuff happening here. So we want to break up some of these colors. And each time we take that mark with that brush, that's exactly what it does. Is it breaks it up. See, I like to hold the brush, do different marks. That's the most important part about it, is you get all those different marks and colors, and that's what starts to just break up. Maybe put a front little green right up here in the front. You know, this is maybe a front little porch, or greener little grass right up here in the front of the house here. Right up like that, pull down just a bit. There, breaks that area up. Okay. And you know, a lot of things when you get into the Impressionism working. Impressionism, when you're working with, you know, these types of colors, there's a lot of work to it. There's a lot of work that needs to be done when you're painting this way, of little marks of color that really kind of make a big difference here into the painting. You know, so yeah, there's a bit of work that goes into some of this. You know, and the more you do it, then the prettier it gets. And you know, but it's a lot of work to get some of this in. Little lights, little broken lines there, the little sparks, and I just messed up that shadow. I wanted to show you guys what not to do with there. Mess up that shadow. Guess what? You get the opportunity to put it back in, and hopefully it'll change just a bit. But you know, start looking at like that barn, and just, you know, maybe getting a bit of that lighter kind of red little hit down that side, just a bit. Don't go everywhere. Just hit that with just a bit more color. See, maybe hit that shadow in that opening of the door here one more time. And that could be a bit darker, maybe even towards the violet, the real deep violet. Blue and a little bit of red violet. That's a little too dark, but you can see, boy, that really changes it, doesn't it? Let's get a little burnt sienna in that. And just pull through that. There we go. And yeah, and you know, some of the downstroke of color there. Take some of that, just whisper through. Breaks up the solid colors. And but it's going to be a expression of your technique, your idea, your technique. Let's get just a little gray, a little violet. Slightly different gray. Not like that. Clean up that edge just a bit more on that barn here. And maybe a bit more of this darker gray right in there kind of color. See, oh, that's a nice color in there. Let's put just a touch of green into that. See, and all of that now really starts to add. This is where it really starts. So you start looking for some of the other little things that you can do, you know, to the house, to the edges, pull that color down. And, you know, and it gets that shadow in there. Your violets, your blues, your shadows, sometimes a little bit to the violet side, sometimes a little bit to the blue side. You get some of those shadows, shadow tones in there. Light them up as they come towards where the light is on the painting. And then, you know, add some warm yellows to it as they get over to the warmer side of the painting. So a little light warm here, right down that side. Hit that warmer color right there. It's hitting that warmth of that morning sun. And see, it's a slow process. That's the one thing that, you know, I think got me on when I originally started painting like this was I jumped right into that, the lights and darks and warms and cools too fast instead of doing the building process. And it was really hard. But doing it this way, see, you see a slow evolution of the painting, and it's a lot better. Let's put some nice warm morning light right out here. The light's coming from that way here. The light is coming there. That nice morning light. Now there's yellows. Let's get some of those right in there. Warm yellows. It's fun out on my morning walks and stuff when I look at those colors and I see these very warm colors, you know, hitting where the light is hitting, and then the shadows are so cool. Big expanses of warm and cool. Big differences of warm and cool. Here's a little cooler color. We'll set just a mark or two to help set those further planes back there. That's kind of neat. You know, maybe we have, you know, you can have a little bit of that cool coming right along, you know, every once in a while, like maybe that's a little trough or a little edge of something there. Maybe, you know, if you want to add even more, maybe you come in through here and add the idea of little fence lines or something like that, you know, little fence posts, and, you know, start decorating it up, start adding some stuff. When you think that you have the majority of your trees, let's just put in a little more light, maybe a bit more yellows here. You know, you have the light side. Here, some of those light yellows. Here. that hit those trees. And if you get too much, you just take some of your darker greens and stuff and just take some of it out. That's all. I paint in and paint out all the time. That's where I get that definition of it. I love it. You know, I paint in and paint out. And and take some, be bold, guys. Take some bold strokes of some of that yellow right through there. That nice glowy yellow. Maybe a little bit more of that and some white. And, be bold, be brave, and just pull some of that through. See, it just gives that nice warmth to it. And some nice greens also right through there. It's the morning. Beautiful colors that just come through. You see? Yeah, and let's use some of that gray. Lost that back edge of that roof line there, so I'll just touch a little bit of it there. Back edge of the house there's a little lost. Just a touch. So I'll push that in just a bit. And maybe you put in a little bit more light right up into the fronts of these. What kinds of trees are these? But leave some of these sparks of interest. Okay? Don't forget, you can do lighter or you can do darker. I tend to do lighter, but don't forget to add a few little, and then just break it up, a few little vertical chisel edge, which is the tree trunks, the ideas of tree trunks in there. Okay? Add a few, don't need them further back, but a few vertical lines will give the impression of tree trunks here. So, just a few up through there. Just wipe them out every once in a while so it looks like the tree goes on top of it or in front of it. Maybe a little bit of green here. There, right into the fronts of those. So I like 3 planes. Now, see that third plane that's right here is not quite as distinguished. If I took some dark right here and put in that horizontal line again and push that back, so I get the linear perspective back. Does that make sense? Then that pushes these trees further back, and maybe these trees can be a little bit more in shadow right in through here. So that pushes them back, brings the house forward, puts in another line of trees here. So I got 1 line, 2 lines, 3 lines back there into the distance. Maybe just a whisper of that. Take most of that out. It's a little dark. See that little dark spot? Kind of destroys it a bit. So I'll take some of that out. And and maybe, boy, do you want to get really fancy? Let's thin this out really thin. Maybe you have some further back trees back here that would be just a little thinner yet back through there. Now, when that is done, do you want to come back, bring some more of the warm, light yellows of the morning sky back in, so this starts to dry up a bit. So it's really easy to add some of the light touches of the morning sky in there. Do you want that or not? That's up to you. Here. Let's just put a little, just so you can see. So even when it's dry, I can do this and bring in even some lighter yet, light color right in here, up into the front of that sky. And really powerful. That might be too much, but I'll take a look at it. But you can come back and you can see. And if you want to really blur it out, how do you do that? If, like, say you want to really work on it and blur it out, okay, let it completely dry, or take it out there and dry it, really completely dry it, and then take a light coat of extender over it and work it, okay? That's how you do it. Let's hit just a few little, I like the little bits of wispiness that can happen to some of these, and little hits of light that you get into the sky coming across. So I do like to add a bit of those. There we go. And that makes a nice little painting. You could add little touches of the light hitting back there into the very back. That's up to you. It does happen though. Some of those lighter yellows hitting there. Some of those lights and yellows hitting onto the front of the trees. So a little bit more going on into the trees. Work your colors a little bit more. Work the house again. I would work the house again, you know, and get some of that nice variation up in there onto that house. Maybe one more time in there. But I like, see all this nice little vertical movements. I like that. Maybe a little more red onto the barn. So it comes forward just a touch more. Maybe a little lighter orange right up into the very front. And then it's time to evaluate it to see just what you want to do to it, you know, and how much you want to do to it. But yeah, fix up some of those little angles, little things, you know, correct your architecture just a bit, you know, and set some of that stuff in. And yeah, you can work as much detail as you want. We're 2 hours into the painting. That's not too bad for a size like this. But I'll probably do a little bit more in here before I call that painting done. A little bit more architectural work on the houses and stuff. It's just a little detail, small brush. Get yourself a nice drink, have some blood, sit down, and just, you know, have some coffee and just work on it, okay? All right? All right, so that gives you some ideas. Very nice to work that sky that way. And, you know, I just saw this. I may want to add just another little, ooh, see how that just works in there even, you know, 2 hours into the painting now, I can still use my knife like that and put that beautiful look into the sky right there. I like that. Gets closer to the sample too. There's tons of things that you can do. Can't be afraid. You're never going to get it right. You got to practice. And the other thing that's very important that I tell you guys all the time, and I still answer this question all the time on every one of the videos, is not all acrylics are the same. Some acrylics that I've made, even as a chemist, were made to dry very fast and hard, and they can't do these types of techniques. These acrylics that I made here that bear our name, I made them specifically for what I do here on these techniques. And if you're looking for those acrylics, you can go right onto the links down below, right onto the Amazon, buy them right through Amazon, or you can order them right directly for us. We ship around the world. So, and if you ever have any questions, just email our studio and we'll happy to answer for them, okay? All right, guys. And don't forget to go check out our gallery sale. I'll put a link to it. It's a sale going on right now. It all 100% supports our channel, okay? So supports everything in the channel. All the sales, we make no money off of it. It goes right to support our building here, which is where we hold free seminars and everything, and it supports the channel. So you support us by buying those paintings, and we really thank you for doing that, okay? And again, let us know in the comments. I've had one that I think I might do, 3 white doves. Got a nice letter from one of the viewers that said, can you show us and then talk to us again about white? But until that time, I do have that owl. Go back and look at that flying owl that shows you how to paint a lot of white. But we'll do that one as well, all right? Lots of stuff coming. Okay, thanks, guys. I'll see you on the next lesson in just a couple days. Bye-bye.